You know what's exhausting? Letting people who don't live your life control how you feel. We spend so much time managing other people's opinions, chasing their approval, reacting to their energy, absorbing their chaos, that we forget to protect the one thing that keeps us sane, our peace. And here's the hard truth. Peace isn't something we stumble upon by accident. It's not a reward for having everything go right, nor is it found at the end of a perfect day. Peace comes from within. It comes from clarity, not from the absence of problems, and that clarity starts with knowing who you are, what you believe in, and what truly matters to you. Most people are chasing peace the wrong way. They think if they can just fix all the external parts of their life, get the right job, have the right people around them, find the perfect balance, then finally they'll feel calm. But that kind of peace is fragile. It depends on everything and everyone around you behaving a certain way. The problem is the world doesn't work like that. People are unpredictable. Life is messy. Control is an illusion. If your peace relies on things outside of you, you'll always be at the mercy of chaos. Real peace is built differently. It's built on clarity, the kind that doesn't change with the weather or other people's moods. When you're clear about your values, clear about your priorities, and clear about your purpose, you don't get shaken so easily. You stop needing everyone to agree with you. You stop letting every disagreement turn into a personal crisis. You stop giving your energy to things that don't align with where you're going. Clarity brings focus. It acts like a filter for your life. When you know who you are, you can quickly identify what's noise and what's truth. You stop chasing distractions. You stop reacting to every comment, every opinion, every minor inconvenience. You learn to pause and ask, does this really matter? Is this worth my peace? Most of the time, the answer is no, but you can only make that decision from a place of clarity. Without clarity, peace is impossible. You'll find yourself constantly overthinking, second-guessing, and reacting. You'll say yes to things that drain you. You'll stay in relationships that confuse you. You'll compromise your values to avoid discomfort. And every time you do, you lose a little more of your center. You start to forget who you are because you're too busy becoming what other people want you to be. But when you're clear, truly clear, everything changes. You don't need permission to protect your peace. You don't apologize for setting boundaries. You don't explain your decisions to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You simply live with intention. You speak with honesty. You walk away from things that disturb your balance, not with anger, not with arrogance, but with quiet confidence. Clarity also frees you from comparison. You stop measuring your life against others because you're focused on your path. You don't envy someone else's highlight reel because you know what's real for you. You're not trying to prove anything. You're not chasing recognition. You're grounded. And when you're grounded, you don't fall apart every time the world shakes. That's why clarity is powerful. It's not loud. It's not dramatic, but it holds you steady. It gives you peace, not because life is easy, but because you know how to stand firm in who you are. You can face challenges without losing your center. You can listen without absorbing. You can engage without reacting. The truth is, peace isn't about escaping the storm. It's about learning how to remain still within it. That stillness, that quiet, unshakable calm, comes from knowing your truth. It comes from clarity. And once you have that, no one can take it away from you. Not circumstances, not people, not even fear. So if you want peace, stop trying to control everything around you. Start by getting clear on what you believe, what you value, and what kind of life you're building. That clarity will become your compass. And the more you follow it, the more peace you'll create, not just in your surroundings, but deep within yourself. One of the most powerful realizations you can have is this: you are in control of your emotional boundaries, not your circumstances, not other people, you. For far too long, many of us believe that our emotions are at the mercy of what happens around us. Someone says something rude, we feel disrespected. Someone ignores us, we feel hurt. Someone criticizes us, we feel offended. And without realizing it, we hand over our emotional well-being to the world. It's like we've given everyone around us a remote control, and they get to push the buttons. But here's the truth: emotional boundaries are something you set, not something you wait for others to respect by default. Boundaries are invisible lines you draw to protect your mental space, your energy, your peace. And the moment you realize you have the right and the responsibility to set them, your life changes. People will always test you. Some intentionally, some unknowingly. Some will push, manipulate, guilt trip, or invade your space. That's human nature. You can't control them, but you can control what you allow. That's where your power lies. You teach people how to treat you by what you tolerate. And when you continue to allow your emotions to be dictated by others, you're silently teaching them that they have access to your peace whenever they want it. Taking control of your emotional boundaries doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop over-caring. It means you stop letting everyone else's feelings become your responsibility. It means you stop feeling guilty for saying no when something doesn't feel right. It's understanding that empathy has limits, and if you give all of your emotional bandwidth to everyone else, you'll have nothing left for yourself. Emotional boundaries are not walls. They're not about shutting people out. They're about creating enough space between you and the world so that you can breathe, think, and respond, not react. When you react, you're triggered. When you respond, you're in control. And that control begins with recognizing your limits. You have a right to say, this conversation is not productive for me. You have a right to say, I don't have the capacity to engage with this right now. You have a right to say, I'm not okay with how you're speaking to me. Setting emotional boundaries is not rude, it's not selfish, it's healthy. Because if you keep absorbing everyone else's anger, frustration, sadness, or drama, eventually you lose touch with your own emotional truth. You can't tell what's yours and what you've picked up from others, and when that happens, you're not living, you're surviving. Some people won't like your boundaries. That's okay. In fact, that's expected. The people who benefited from you having none will be the first to resist when you finally set them, but the goal isn't to be liked by everyone. The goal is to be respected first by yourself and then by others. You'll also find that once you start setting boundaries, your relationships shift. Some grow stronger, some fade. But the ones that stay, they're healthier. They're more respectful. Because now you're showing up from a place of strength, not people-pleasing. You're showing up whole, not drained. And when your emotional boundaries are clear, your life becomes clearer too. You stop spending time in places that drain you. You stop engaging in conversations that spiral into conflict. You start protecting your focus, your energy, your time. You stop feeling overwhelmed because you're no longer saying yes to things that should have been a no. That doesn't mean it's easy. Setting emotional boundaries can be uncomfortable, especially at first. You'll feel the pressure to explain, to apologize, to justify. But with practice, you'll realize that clarity doesn't always require explanation. Sometimes this is what I need is enough. So start small. Pay attention to what drains you. Pay attention to what triggers emotional chaos inside you. Then create space. Speak up. Step back. Protect your energy like it's sacred because it is. Your peace is your responsibility. And no one else will guard it for you unless you do. You don't need to be cold. You don't need to be distant. You just need to be clear. Clear about what you allow. Clear about how you want to feel. Clear about what you're no longer willing to accept. That's how you take control of your emotional boundaries. And once you do, you'll feel lighter, stronger, and more grounded than ever before. Because now you're no longer living at the mercy of other people's storms. You've chosen to live in the calm of your own center. There comes a point in your life when you realize you've been carrying the weight of other people's opinions far too long. You've shaped your words to avoid conflict, held back your truth to avoid judgment, and bent yourself into someone else's version of acceptable. And slowly, quietly, you lose yourself. Not all at once, but in small daily sacrifices that keep other people comfortable and you conflicted. This is what happens when you try to manage everyone's opinions. It starts innocently. You want to be liked, you want to fit in, you want to be seen as kind, capable, smart, valuable. So you seek approval, you play it safe, you over-explain, you overthink. And before you know it, your life is no longer led by your inner compass. It's dictated by an invisible audience you're trying to impress. Here's the truth. No matter how carefully you live, someone will always have an opinion. Whether you're bold or quiet, successful or struggling, traditional or unconventional, people will always have something to say. And the harder you try to manage that, the more exhausted you become, because it's a game you can't win. Everyone sees you through the filter of their own beliefs, insecurities, and expectations. Their opinion of you is not about you, it's about them. When you try to control how others perceive you, you start editing yourself, you shrink your personality, you second-guess your choices, you mute your voice. And the irony is, the more you try to please everyone, the less authentic you become, until eventually you can't even recognize yourself. Managing opinions means you're constantly performing. You say what people want to hear. You do what's expected. You stay in roles, relationships, and situations that no longer align with your truth, simply because you're afraid of what people might think if you leave. And that fear keeps you stuck. But growth demands honesty. And honesty requires letting go of the need to be liked by everyone. When you stop managing everyone's opinions, you start living for something deeper than approval. You begin to live in alignment. You make choices based on your values, not on what looks good from the outside. You speak from truth, not fear. You start showing up as you are, not the version of yourself you think the world wants to see. It's uncomfortable at first. You'll feel exposed. You'll feel vulnerable. You'll hear the noise, people questioning you, doubting you, judging you. But here's what you'll also find: freedom. A kind of peace that comes from no longer being chained to other people's expectations. A strength that grows when your worth is no longer dependent on someone else's applause. You'll realize that people's opinions don't define you, they reflect them. Someone says you're too much, maybe you're just too real for them. Someone says you've changed, maybe you finally stopped pretending. Someone says you're selfish, maybe for the first time you're choosing yourself. Letting go of people-pleasing doesn't make you rude, it makes you honest. And honesty is a gift, not just to yourself, but to the people around you. When you're real, you give others permission to be real too. When you stand in your truth, you model courage for others to do the same. The right people will never need you to shrink to stay in their life. They will respect your boundaries. They will value your authenticity. They will grow with you. And the people who don't, let them go. Let them misunderstand you. Let them form their opinions. That's their business. Your business is staying true to who you are. You are not here to be understood by everyone. You are here to live a life that feels right in your soul, even if it doesn't make sense to others. You don't owe explanations for your evolution. You don't need to justify your healing, your ambition, your boundaries, or your growth. You are not responsible for how people feel about your truth. So stop managing their opinions. Start managing your energy. Start managing your time, your mental health, your joy. Start showing up for the life you were meant to live, not the one others expect you to live. Because at the end of the day, it's not the opinions of others that you have to live with, it's yourself. And when you can look in the mirror and know that you've been real, honest, and free, that's worth more than any approval you could ever earn. There's a quiet kind of power that comes when you realize not every conflict needs your attention. Not every opinion deserves a response. Not every disagreement is worth your energy. And not every battle is yours to fight. In a world that thrives on outrage, reactions, and quick responses, choosing to stay calm feels almost rebellious. We're conditioned to defend ourselves, to explain, to respond to every comment, to jump into every argument to prove a point. But what we often don't realize is that every time we react without intention, we give away a little piece of our peace. There's this belief that silence means weakness, that not responding makes you look guilty or passive. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Sometimes silence is the loudest statement. Sometimes walking away is the strongest move. And sometimes not attending the argument is how you protect everything you've worked so hard to build: your mindset, your peace, your growth. We tend to get pulled into conflict because of ego. The ego wants to be right. It wants to be validated. It wants to win. So it steps into arguments just to prove a point, even when the point isn't worth proving. But growth teaches you something different. Growth teaches you that being right is less important than being at peace. That keeping your center is more valuable than keeping score. You don't have to attend every emotional invitation sent your way. You don't have to respond to passive-aggressive comments. You don't need to explain yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. Because many conflicts are never about truth. They're about control, power, or unresolved pain that someone else is projecting onto you. And here's something powerful. Refusing to engage doesn't mean you're afraid. It means you're in control. It means you've matured past the need for chaos. It means you've chosen clarity over confusion. And it means you've learned that your energy is sacred and not everything deserves access to it. This doesn't mean you avoid necessary conversations. It doesn't mean you suppress your voice or let people walk all over you. What it does mean is that you learn to choose your battles wisely. Some things are worth standing up for. Some things deserve a direct response, but not everything. Wisdom is knowing the difference. When you engage in every conflict that crosses your path, you become reactive, scattered, and drained. You lose your focus, you lose your momentum, and worse, you lose your sense of control. But when you step back and ask yourself, does this truly matter to the future I'm building? You reclaim your power. You also start to see how much noise is just that, noise. People are fighting battles you know nothing about. They say things out of pain, fear, jealousy, or misunderstanding. And if you try to correct every one of them, you'll spend your life exhausted, bitter, and constantly triggered. That's not a life of purpose. That's a life of distraction. There's so much strength and restraint in being able to say, I see what's happening here, and I choose not to participate. In being able to say, this isn't my energy to carry. In being able to let someone else be wrong about you and not feel the need to fix it. Because here's what happens when you stop showing up to every fight. You gain mental clarity. You feel lighter. You protect your emotional bandwidth. You have more room for what actually matters. Your growth, your goals, your inner calm. You become the kind of person who isn't easily shaken. You develop a calm presence. People may even wonder why you don't react like you used to. It's not because you don't care. It's because you've learned the difference between protecting your pride and protecting your peace. You don't owe anyone an argument. You don't need to attend every disagreement like it's a scheduled event. You are allowed to outgrow the noise. You are allowed to walk away, because when you do, you rise above it. You stop participating in cycles that go nowhere. And you start building a life that isn't ruled by reactivity, but grounded in purpose. So the next time you feel pulled into a conflict, pause. Ask yourself, is this helping me grow? Is this worth my time, my energy, my peace? And if the answer is no, don't go. Let it pass. Let it go. Let them talk. Not every conflict requires your attendance, and that's not weakness. It's wisdom. Boundaries are not barriers. They are not about shutting people out or building walls around your heart. Boundaries are bridges between who you are and what you need. They are a declaration to the world, and more importantly to yourself, that your time, energy, and well-being matter. At their core, boundaries are a profound act of self-respect. Too often we associate boundaries with guilt. We think setting a boundary means we're being selfish or unkind. We fear that if we say no, we'll disappoint someone. If we ask for space, we'll be judged. So we keep stretching ourselves, saying yes when we mean no, staying silent when we want to speak, tolerating things that drain us, all to avoid discomfort. But in the process, we end up betraying ourselves. Self-respect begins with honoring your limits. It means recognizing when something feels wrong, when your body is tired, when your soul feels heavy, and choosing to listen rather than push through. Boundaries are how we draw the line between compassion and self-neglect. You can be kind without being available 24/7. You can love people without letting them walk all over you. When you have no boundaries, you teach the world that your needs come second. You show others that your time is always up for negotiation. Your emotions are theirs to manage, and your presence can be accessed at any moment. Over time, that wears you down. It creates resentment. You start to feel invisible, not because people don't see you, but because you stop standing up for yourself. But when you set boundaries, you shift that dynamic. You stop overextending. You stop apologizing for protecting your peace. You stop waiting for people to treat you better and start showing them how. Boundaries are not about controlling others. They are about controlling what you allow. They are how you communicate your worth, not just in words but in action. Saying no is not rejection, it's redirection. It's choosing what aligns with your values, your priorities, and your energy. It's creating space for what truly matters, because every time you say yes to something that doesn't serve you, you are saying no to something that does. Boundaries are how you ensure that your life isn't filled with obligations, but with purpose. It's not always easy. Setting boundaries can be uncomfortable, especially if you're used to people-pleasing or if those around you have become used to you having none. The first time you say no without explaining, the first time you don't pick up the phone, the first time you cancel plans to rest, you might feel guilt, you might face resistance, but that's okay. Growth always comes with discomfort. The right people will respect your boundaries. They might not always understand them, but they will respect them because they respect you. The wrong people, the ones who are benefiting from your lack of limits, will resist, question, or even try to guilt trip you. That's not a reflection of your boundary being wrong. That's a reflection of their entitlement to your time and energy. Boundaries also teach you discipline. You learn to trust yourself. You learn that it's okay to be misunderstood. You learn that not every conflict needs resolution if it costs your peace. You start showing up differently, more grounded, more confident, more intentional. You begin to walk into spaces no longer seeking permission to exist fully. And as you set boundaries with others, you also begin to set them with yourself. You stop tolerating your own excuses. You stop ignoring your own needs. You start waking up for yourself, showing up for your goals, creating structure around what fuels you. That's self-respect in motion. That's inner leadership. Boundaries are not about being distant. They're about being clear. They're not about control. They're about care. You deserve to live a life where you don't feel constantly depleted, where your energy is protected, where your voice matters. That starts by drawing lines that honor your worth. You don't need to defend your boundaries. You just need to live them. Let them speak for you. Let them filter out what's not meant for you. Let them create space for people and opportunities that uplift, not drain you. Because when you respect yourself enough to set boundaries, the world learns how to respect you too. And in that, you build a life that isn't just full, but full of meaning. In a world that moves at the speed of distraction, chaos can feel normal. We're constantly bombarded by messages, opinions, deadlines, noise. We wake up and reach for our phones. We scroll through the anxiety of the world before our feet even touch the ground. We react to everything instantly, an email, a text, a headline, and call it being productive. But underneath it all, we're often just overwhelmed. We're not leading our lives, we're being pulled through them. There's a different way to live, a more powerful way, and it starts by choosing calm over chaos. Calm is not passive, it's not slow, it's not weak. Calm is focused, calm is clear, calm is deliberate. It's the strength to slow down when everything around you is speeding up. It's the ability to pause before reacting, to reflect before deciding, and to speak with intention instead of urgency. When you lead your life from a place of calm, you stop chasing everything at once. You don't rush decisions just to feel in control. You don't panic when plans shift. You don't let small inconveniences throw you off course. Instead, you operate from clarity. You know your priorities. You trust your process. You understand that real progress is built with consistency, not chaos. Chaos thrives in disorganization, in your environment, your relationships, your schedule, and especially your mind. When you live in chaos, everything feels urgent. Everything feels like a fire to put out. You say yes too quickly, react without thinking, and commit without clarity. And in the process, your day and your life becomes a series of reactions instead of intentional actions. Calm, on the other hand, comes from inner alignment. It's built by creating space in your mind, your calendar, and your relationships. It's knowing that just because someone else is in a rush doesn't mean you have to be. It's realizing that urgency doesn't always equal importance. It's trusting that saying, "let me think about it," is a valid and powerful response. When you lead from calm, you no longer let the external world dictate your internal state. You stop living on edge. You stop absorbing the panic and pressure of others. You create space between stimulus and response, and in that space you find your power. Leading from calm also changes how you deal with people. You become more grounded in conflict. You listen instead of jumping in. You ask better questions. You don't take everything personally. You start seeing beneath the surface, realizing that most people's chaos is about them, not you. And instead of matching their energy, you protect your own. But here's the thing, calm doesn't just happen. You have to create it. You have to choose it. You have to build routines that support it, boundaries that protect it, habits that reinforce it. That might mean waking up earlier for stillness. That might mean turning off notifications. That might mean spending more time in nature, journaling, or simply doing less so you can live more intentionally. Calm is built in the small moments, the pause before you speak, the breath before you answer, the decision to log off instead of argue. It's not dramatic, it's not loud, but it's powerful, because when you're calm, you think clearly, you see the bigger picture, you operate from vision, not reaction, and when you live that way long enough, people notice, they feel it when you walk in the room. You don't need to raise your voice to be heard, you don't need to control others to feel powerful. Your calm becomes your leadership, your steadiness becomes your influence. Leading your life from calm doesn't mean you won't face storms, it means you'll navigate them with grace. You won't avoid stress, but you'll stop letting it define you. You won't escape challenges, but you'll meet them with composure. The world doesn't need more speed, it needs more presence. It needs people who are calm in a crisis, people who respond instead of react,
People who make choices from a place of strength, not stress. So choose calm, build it, protect it, and let it lead the way. Because when you lead your life from calm, chaos no longer controls you. You control how you rise through it, and that changes everything.